podcast. So welcome everyone. My name is Mary Eleanor Power and I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications for Dalhousie University's Faculty of Open Learning and Career Development. And I'm delighted to be joined by our two guests, Daniel Arsenault and Iman Al-Ali, for today's webinar in lifelong learning in the construction industry. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that Dalhousie University is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq. We are all treaty people. I'd also like to recognize that African Nova Scotians are a distinct people whose histories, legacies, and contributions have enriched that part of Mi'kma'ki known as Nova Scotia for over 400 years. So I'll offer some brief introductions of our two guests. Daniel Arsenault has over 10 years of construction estimating experience in architectural trades across the East Coast. As the founder of the Halifax office of Arsenault Brothers Construction Limited, he has developed his previously existing family business by expanding into HRM, managing a team of estimators, project managers, site supers, and a labor force of up to 50 employees. Dan has a bachelor's degree in business administration and has extensive experience teaching at trade colleges. He prides himself on his background in wood manufacturing as well as CAD design, all of which makes him the perfect host and founder of the Atlantic Construction Podcast. And I'd also like to welcome Iman, who is a professional engineer in Ontario with over 25 years of experience in the field of civil engineering. She's passionate about learning and helping others learn as engineering science evolves. After completing her BSc degree in civil engineering, she pursued her MSc in structural engineering. She was offered a teaching position at the University of Technology in Baghdad, Iraq, to teach different civil engineering materials. While at the University of Technology, Iman established the first personal computer laboratory in 1986. She also held a position as structural engineer, where she mastered her skills in structural design and inspection, quality control and quality assurance, and enriched her expertise in the project management field. As a design manager in Dubai, UAE, she completed many successful projects of different types, from villa compounds to multi-million-dollar commercial towers. In 2010, she received her LEED AP in building design and construction credential to manage green building projects. And in 2011, she was certified as a project management professional. So welcome and thank you, Daniel and Iman, for joining us. I'm so delighted to have you here today. And Iman, I know that you're going to be offering some words around the two certificates that you teach, or the two that we'll be featuring today. And Daniel, look forward to your comments on how the construction industry has been changing over the years. Just going to kick us off with a bit of a Q&A. And before I do, let me just offer some two housekeeping notes. The first is that if you have any questions, you can add them to the chat. We'd be happy to answer them near the end. And also the second housekeeping note, if you have any colleagues who you think would benefit from seeing today's webinar, we are recording it, and we will be sending around an email before the end of the workday to your inboxes with a recording of the webinar that will be featured on our YouTube channel. And I know Daniel and his team will be offering some clips of today's webinar on the Atlantic Construction Podcast and through their other social media channels. So please stay tuned for that and share this information widely if it's of interest to your colleagues. So I thought that it would be worthwhile for us to just facilitate a few polls to get us all awake on this Monday afternoon, morning, depending on where you're joining us from, or I don't think evening for any of us, but certainly the morning. So I'll get us started and with today's poll. So our first poll, what brings you to today's webinar? So I believe if Iman or Daniel, if you can confirm that you see that.
I do see it, yes.
Great. That's great. So if you can just, oopsie, maybe answer. Oh, I have a duplication there, but just feel free to, interested in professional development for myself. The second one is I'm interested in professional development. It should say for my team. Okay, so let me just wait another minute here. So there are people here to listen and learn, and people here for professional development for themselves. So we just had 2 people respond, but I assume that others perhaps were still maybe thinking, but yeah, I think it's always good to think about what brings you here today. So we'll have a few more polls throughout the webinar as well. So just today's agenda will be, I'll be passing it over to Daniel in just a moment to chat about what's happening in the construction industry. I'll be walking you through, and Iman as well, about lifelong learning options that are available to you. And then we'll be happy to answer any questions. So just before we dive right in, I just want to acknowledge that, you know, for some, professional development or taking that time to invest in your own professional development can require a bit of a shift in where you focus your time, where you might focus your finances, depending on whether you're financing it yourself or your employer. But just want to recognize that it can feel like a bit of a leap. And if we can help in any way, feel free to reach out to us at openlearning@dal.ca. Our student services team, staff, our email, and are always happy to answer your questions. And we have a few staff who are joining us on today's webinar who would be happy to jump in and answer any questions that you have. So without further ado, I'll pass it along to Daniel.
Thanks, Mary Eleanor. And yeah, we're excited to team up with Dalhousie and deliver this webinar for those of you that have joined. And yeah, I think it's a great synergy, and some of the courses that are offered through open learning and career development through Dalhousie certainly be beneficial for a lot of professionals in the industry and people that are hoping to you know, continue their career path in a positive direction. So we'll just start with kind of an overview of what's happening in the industry. Obviously, for us with our podcast the last year and a half, starting spring of 2021, we're now in Q4 of 2022, almost at year end. So we've had about 40 guests, and those guests, you know, are made up of subcontractors, anything from landscaping and masonry and interiors, environmental companies, to engineering firms, architects, and other consultants, and then general contractors and developers. So it's been a humbling experience. There's so many people in the industry from different backgrounds and different expertise, but it really allows us to kind of get a pulse on, you know, where people are coming from, what's happening, what are the gaps, what are the points of interest for their companies, the positions that are lacking, and sort of where things are headed. So just kind of excited to share a little bit about that perspective, and with having our finger on the pulse in the industry. Obviously, right now, excuse me, right now, you know, Nova Scotia, especially through the pandemic, haven't sustained that in the construction industry being an essential service. As we come out of that, you know, it really seems to be that we're in a great position as far as the industry at large, and you know, where things are headed, and you know, new positions being created, lots of public private tenders that are happening right now, and projections and outlooks look good in you know, the near future. Buildforce Canada you know, projects that 2023 will be probably the peak, 2023 2024. So we're expecting to see you know, 2,000 positions across Nova Scotia, new positions, and then that kind of sustained through the next 5-6 years to 2027, with a small increase as well, maybe, you know, 4 or 5% increase at the 2027 mark. The other, you know, key point is that demographically, you know, from baby boomers to Gen X and millennials, you see kind of a big transition happening. And These statistics are gathered again from Build Force Canada. You can find them on the Construction Association website and the Sector Council. But there's a lot of people that will be retiring in the next 3 to 4 or 5 years, and so that's kind of a call to arms, for the youth. We do see more business owners in the Gen X millennial age now. Forward thinking a lot about education, especially with the tech needs, the ever-changing technology that's required to run these projects from a project management standpoint. So that kind of leads into, I have another stat there, recruitment of 3,800 new workers under 30 over the next 4 years to kind of fill that gap. So, all signs kind of point to the fact that there's lots of work, in our industry, and it's definitely an exciting time. Another thing, if you want to switch the slide there, Mary Ellen, that would be great. Thank you. Our apprenticeship situation is, I think, kind of an issue, especially for subcontractors and, well, anyone involved in the project from the head down, because, a big thing right now that we talk with most of our guests on our podcast about is labor shortage. Now that's kind of labor shortage in all regards, but maybe more keenly with skilled workers. So yes, we need lots of people that are, progressing through their apprenticeship journey and coming out of NSCC and other trade colleges that can enter the workforce as junior estimators, junior project managers, et cetera, et cetera. But a lot of these positions are positions that, people with 5-10 years experience who are keeping up with technology and taking courses, and, it needs to be experience level, senior level positions that are really tough to fill. There's only so many out there. And so with the retirement kind of transition we're entering into, I think it's ever more important for Gen X and millennials to be keeping up with, what courses should I take, what are most relevant to my specific position and journey, and which ones have accreditation toward Gold Seal that's recognized, and other similar criteria. But we need to keep learning. And with one of the stats I was reading from the Construction Association this week, in 2020, just kind of at the start of the pandemic, new registrants for apprenticeship programs dropped by 60%. Now that was due to obstacles in delivery, in-school training and testing and certification obviously wasn't as efficient during that time. But I think, we're still going to be paying for that this year, the rest of this year, next year, and the year after. There's gaps there for apprenticeship for trades, and some of the trades that are kind of key ones, bricklayer, carpenter, heavy duty equipment technicians, electricians, industrial mechanics, crane operators, roofers, welders. These are some of the ones that are listed kind of through the association and on some other platforms. But I would add to that, estimating is a big gap for a lot of companies right now. It's really hard to find good estimators. Estimating is kind of an engine in-house that drives your business. And I would say, I'm sure that we're going to talk about the construction management course, but when it comes to things like that, like, there's dots to be connected. Like, as a business owner, I would say the construction management course would be very valuable for estimators to take. I mean, obviously it is for project managers, but, estimating beyond the data and, point counts and square foot and linear foot takeoffs and that software, and understanding your scope and reading specs and whatnot. Communication is so key for estimators to have their minds wrapped around the project, to be communicating during the tender process, to understand the documentation and bonding and allowances and things like that. So a well-rounded estimator is a hard thing to find. I think Chatty would attest to that. I think I see his name as one of the audience members here, but I'm sure that he would agree. And I think that, those kind of courses can enhance an estimator's effectivity within a company a lot. And I think a lot of business owners would get that and, consider funding, having those courses paid for their employees for retention and growth and things like that. And I just wanted to kind of make that point because that's a big gap. And then also, project managers are key, especially for general contractors and kind of these companies that are, doing major complex projects, whether they're public or private. And I'm speaking mostly with this data and from the podcast, obviously, Atlantic Canada, but kind of with a focus in Nova Scotia with a lot of these stats and some of my comments. So forgive me if you're tuning in from other provinces, but I think it relates and we're kind of consolidated in our industry and feeding off each other. So yeah, I think that with the way things are headed right now, it's an exciting time. It's a time that I think everyone should be considering, how to get that advantage. It's a competitive industry, and it's just a fast moving industry with all kinds of, again, new technology and new trades and using new technology on site. And just to stay on top of it is key, because you kind of, we're all busy and it's consuming for our work weeks. But when there's things that are offered, that are at our own pace, weekends, evenings, that can kind of be fit into one schedule, both personal and professional, whether they have kids or whether they have lots of things outside of work. I think that it's a great opportunity to make the industry better. And yeah, so we can probably switch slides there again, Mary Eleanor, please. Yeah, as I was going to mention, my second point there, project managers and engineering positions too. I mean, we've had on our podcasts, some of the largest local general contractors to Atlantic Canada, Lindsay's and Iron Maple, Marco, RCS, all companies that have been around have great leadership and management, give great comments and feedback. And then we've had some others that are national, multinational corps, but they're Atlantic divisions, and they're constantly looking for good project managers, wanting to hire people for retention. So probably with a focus on millennial and Gen X. Again, those companies, they've got a lot of people that have been around for a lot of years and are transitioning out probably in the next few years just due to retirement. So I think, there's all kinds of opportunities there. I remember Design Point Engineering was on about 9 months ago. And basically at that time, they would have hired 5 to 10 engineers and couldn't find them, couldn't find the people to fill the positions. So I think it stretches across the board. It stretches across the board in the key trades and the skilled workers for sure. That's with projects that are current and projects that are planned to start. There's a shortage. They're not sure where these workers are going to come from. That's why you see a big kind of shift in the hires of immigration workers and immigrant workers coming here that are experienced in the trades and helping out with that gap. And we're just hoping that the apprenticeship journey and the local kind of filter can keep up with the needs, because it's important to have a mix and have diversity. That's a big thing in construction now, with women in construction and other minorities. But we need lots of local talent that are coming up through the apprenticeship filter, and it's a challenge right now. And I'm sure the people at apprenticeship would have lots to say about that. And it's an important thing, but it stretches from the site and skilled trades right onto many white collar positions, from estimating, project management, engineering, and you're going to find the same thing in architecture and other consulting positions too. So again, speaking from a kind of an HRM Nova Scotia standpoint, it's kind of where a lot of our pulse is, just because we're located here and there's so much happening. It's hard to keep up with everything else that's going on in Atlantic Canada. So we have our hands full with that. And, you know, you see a lot of public, you know, spending happening. There's some stats from the Construction Association and the capital plan for 2022, 23. Obviously QE2, new generation, the Cape Breton Regional Hospital, lots of healthcare dollars being spent for public tenders. And then it's impossible not to see the private developments just driving around Halifax, you know, with all the cranes. And, you know, you hear numbers all the time. There's 25 cranes up in the city now. There's this many. But I can just name like the Kennard Center on Lower Water Street, Richmond Yards in the north end of Halifax, Bank Group with Joseph Howe project, like, and these are all major, like 300+ projects that are anywhere from 2 to 7, 8 years to complete, and they're at year 1 or 2. So obviously there's lots of private stuff to keep up to for trades and positions and things like that. So you do hear lots of different things with the you know, with real estate and the increase in interest rates and 1 point recently. And you know, maybe developers were kind of a little weary for a few months, you know, earlier in the fall, but that's kind of day to day. And overall, I think anyone in the industry realizes that things are going to be busy, which is great. And it's a time for us to, you know, kind of lean in and enjoy the opportunities. And it's certainly been, it's been quite a ride to just have our kind of media operations start through the pandemic to get to where we are now, and just hear from so many different people, the vast amount of people that it takes to get these large commercial projects built, and residential as well. Multi-res, obviously that's a big thing. You know, multi-res is so big in Nova Scotia right now, with the population increasing as it is. You know, hope the infrastructure can keep up, but it's been crazy. And you know, it's good to see there's lots of work there too, in the multi-res and mixed use building arena. So hope that kind of gives a little outline of you know, where the industry's at right now, what some of the challenges are and the gaps in labor shortage and some of the key positions, and how it kind of relates to some of the courses that that Dalhousie Open Learning Career Development can offer to kind of bridge the gap.
Wonderful. Thank you, Daniel, for that very detailed overview. That was fantastic. And it certainly lays a great foundation, no pun intended, for some of what Iman will be covering. I do see, I am going to kind of break the rules that I set at the beginning and actually just, because it's timely, just draw on the question that Eutheny has asked in the chat. Do immigrants need to go through the apprenticeship process? Daniel, do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, I've been involved personally with hiring immigrant workers through ISANs. That's for positions on the trades on site. There's lots of funding there for employers to do that, and incentive. You know, some of the challenges are, you know, language barriers and things like that. But as far as apprenticeship, if they have a certain level of apprenticeship, like a Red Seal or whatnot, like they can, you know, I believe that they can have that certified here. But I'm not sure, depending on, you know, the variables of the certain individual or situation, you know, what the stipulations are to have like a 3rd, 4th year journeyman accreditation from wherever it is that they might have moved here from, or Red Seal designation, and how the kind of cross-reference those. But I think if they have an existing accreditation, I think it can be approved. Otherwise, yes, they would have to enter the, you know, typical apprenticeship journey here in whatever province they're in, And those were the cases that I was involved in, where there was funding available and they entered at, first or second year, kind of wherever their hours stood. So I'm not sure if that answers your question directly, but.
Thanks, and sorry about that. I just had to jump in with that
No problem.
question. Wonderful. Okay, and now I have another just quick poll to and I wonder if I was just out of curiosity, I wanted to just launch this poll asking what are you experiencing in the industry? So based on what Daniel, I'm just curious, based on what Daniel said, do you agree with it? It's much of the same that you're experiencing or seeing, or it's different for you and your team? I would love if you might want to elaborate on what you're seeing that might be different from what Daniel's described in terms of demands for jobs, skills, growth in the industry. So just curious, and feel free to add in your comments. I'll just pause here for a minute. So, okay. So just much of the same. It's good to know. Good to know that folks are experiencing much of the same, and we'll have one other poll to share before we wrap up today's webinar. And so with that, let me just move us along in the presentation. So with that, I'll pass it on to Iman to give us an overview of two of the certificates that she teaches for the Faculty of Open Learning and Career Development. So Iman, over to you.
Yeah. Hi, thank you for having me today. So there are two certificate programs offered at Dalhousie University. They are the construction management and the AutoCAD courses. So those are offered in two ways. The first one is instructor-led, where I can be available for online sessions, weekly sessions, and communicating with students as in normal classroom, but through the internet, online. And the other way is to have to get registered for these two courses as on-demand basis. That's where I don't be in the picture, but I will be supporting the students in case they have any inquiry or any question through emails. So I'm going to communicate with the students via emails. Those two approaches help students to tailor their time and customize their, their circumstances on the on what they have in. If they have work or family issues, or they can't afford the time to attend the instructor-led, which is offered through certain limited time. So they can go to, or they can opt to the on-demand courses, where they can manage their own time and their effort. It can be taken like it's open time duration for these for the courses of these two certificates. So the two certificates contain 3 courses. Each course runs for about 6 to 8 weeks, And as I mentioned, if I am involved is as an instructor-led courses, so I will be there for the students during the whole 6 to 8 weeks. And by the end of each course, the student will have to pass a final exam of each course to get certified or get the passing transcript for that course. And there will be 2 months, about 2 months gap between each course. So they can coordinate with their employer in case they are sponsored, their courses or their study was sponsored by their employer. The construction management certificate program walks the students from the starting of a project, from the concept, and then the planning. I will walk through all the stages of creating a project, from the feasibility, then the planning, then the design, then the procurement, the construction, and the construction involves quality assurance, quality control, and then we will go over some conflict resolutions. Of course, any project has some should have some conflict or like changes in that project. So there will be a session for conflict resolution. For we will be talking about unions and risks and safety, of course, because it is a major issue in all construction projects, and that's what differs actually the construction projects that other than other projects. So it's if it's project management, okay, it's this similar concept, but for construction project management, the safety is paramount. And then we will be having the procurement, the value engineering, which is very important step in the construction phases, and until closing out the project or testing and commissioning. And so we will pass through all these stages of the project. And as Daniel mentioned, the most important part of the construction project is how to estimate and how to find the cost or control the cost of a project. So there will be a highlight of how to estimate and how to find out, and through an example project to just calculate the cost of the project and what factors affect that calculation of the cost of the other certificate, which is the AutoCAD. Of course, the project manager or construction manager is a person who should know everything, but a little of everything. They shouldn't be specialized in knowing in depth of some kind of knowledge, but they have to have a broad knowledge of different aspects of the project. So AutoCAD is one of these things that a project manager should know, because they will be looking at drawings, that they will be maybe they will be commenting on shop drawings, so they should know a little bit, or they should have a background about AutoCAD as well. And I have a third course, which is offered only on demand, which is structural engineering for architects and non-structural engineers. And this one touches only the basics of structural engineering. So it doesn't go into deep details of the derivations of functions and theories. So it is, I think, it is a good idea to, if a project manager wants to know how the structure is working. So it's a good idea also to take advantage of this course offering. And yeah, so that's about all. If you have any questions regarding any of the courses, just let me know.
Wonderful. Thanks, Iman. And I really appreciate how you just walked through the importance of, you know, teaching both the technical skills as well. And I think this is maybe really more pronounced in the construction management certificate, but just the balance of the technical know-how, or a little bit of that, enough to be dangerous, as I like to say, along with the communication skills of how to communicate with different people and the different roles that they might play, communicating with unions, resolving conflicts. So it seems like a really kind of well-rounded foundational certificate for, you know, anyone who want to take a step further and specialize in a certain area. So just wanted to emphasize that from the points that you made. Thank you. And feel free to add in the chat any questions you might have for Iman on those two certificates. And I'm also just going to kind of walk through a few more. You could certainly take 2 hours, I think, to walk through all of the different certificates that we offer at the faculty that are that touch on related industries, but that all kind of feed into the construction ecosystem. And I'll highlight the link where you can find all of these certificates listed. But I just thought I would cover a few. So we do offer certificate in home inspection that continues to be, apologies for the emergency vehicle you hear in the back, you might be hearing in the background. Yeah, we offer a certificate in home inspection that includes 10 courses. And I wanted to highlight this because, you know, it still very much is an in-demand skill and need in the industry. And our certificate prepares you for the National Home Inspectors Examination that's administered by the Examination Board of Professional Home Inspectors. So you will cover a whole variety of different topics that are listed here. I won't list them. I know we can all just take a quick look at those. But I do want to emphasize that you can take these courses at your own pace. And Daniel referenced this at the beginning of the webinar. I just want to bring it forward again, which is that, you know, we really try to, in our, particularly the certificates and courses that we offer in the construction industry, recognize that it's sometimes challenging to fit in professional development in the traditional workday, and that depending on the role that you play in the construction industry, a typical workday really isn't an 8 to 5. And so we recognize that by making sure that our courses, a lot of them, can be taken at your own pace. And it doesn't mean that the instructor isn't available for questions. They certainly are, but it just means that, you know, we can make sure that we're addressing your professional development needs so that you can take the courses in the early mornings, in the evenings, on the weekends. So I do just want to emphasize that these 10 courses can be taken at your own pace. And in each of the courses that, if you do click ahead and register for these courses, or at least explore them, we do offer a recommendation of how many hours on average you should spend per week on the course. So you have a good sense of the workload that you should be committing to in advance of registering. And we do have a limit on Just in order to keep your skills current, we recommend that you complete all courses within 5 years of enrolling to receive the certificate. I do include the cost per course. And I should also just take a moment to acknowledge that you have the option of earning a Dalhousie certificate, but if you do decide that you want to complete only a few courses of the certificate, you certainly can. And so if you would prefer not to kind of commit to the full certificate, taking a few courses here and there, you can receive a course completion record. And so that is still accessible when you register for courses and create an account. So you will still receive that course completion record from Dalhousie. And as I mentioned, our certificate does prepare you for that National Home Inspector's examination. And then I also just wanted to highlight the certificate that we offer in heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, also known as HVAC. There are 3 courses that cover key points in HVAC installation, in systems, and as Iman mentioned, such an important piece in terms of estimating costs and role of an estimator. But certainly this certificate will focus on HVAC system and controlling HVAC costs, and then strategies that you can use for integrating and managing various HVAC processes. So as I mentioned before, in terms of professional development at your convenience, we do offer these courses, three courses at your own pace, but we also offer the same courses that incorporate live online sessions. And so again, to acknowledge, that perhaps people are making time for professional development later in the evenings. If you do decide to take these courses, so you have the option of taking them at your own pace, and you also have the option of live online sessions that happen every Tuesday in the evening from 8 to 9 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time. I've listed the price here. The price is the same regardless of the option that you choose, either at your own pace or with the live online sessions. And then also you earn a certificate from Dalhousie, and that, as is the case for the other certificates that were covered, these courses can count toward your PD hours to maintain your certifications. So now I'll just launch our final poll for today's webinar. And I encourage everyone to answer this. I don't have the option to answer it, but Iman, Daniel, if you have the option to answer it, I welcome your thoughts on it too. So what is your ideal delivery format for courses? We're always curious to hear. Certainly we've been bringing back more face-to-face courses, and recognizing that all of our courses had to move to an online format when we were in various lockdowns. But we do have a lot of different options available. So I'll just give that a moment.
I can't tell.
Okay, I wasn't sure, given that we're panelists, we probably aren't able to, but
No.
I'll speak for myself, and I'll just share the results. So online, so no face-to-face takers, online at your own pace or online with scheduled live sessions in the evening. So I would prefer the online at my own pace.
Yeah.
Daniel, what's your preference?
Yeah, me too.
Oh, man, it's your preference too?
Online at my own pace. It's very
Right.
convenient.
Yeah. Daniel, what would be your preference?
Yeah, definitely online at my own pace. I think just with being a business owner, like a lot of other industry members are working full time. It's nice to have that option for sure.
That's great. Okay, wonderful. So here I just wanted to list all of the different categories and where our certificates fall in their delivery format. So you'll notice we have the largest number of our offerings available in that online self-paced format. And then we do have a few that are just online with live sessions, and then some that are available in both formats. So you could either take it in self-paced format or online with live sessions. You'll notice that we do have lots of other options listed here that were not covered in today's webinar. But I would highly encourage you to explore other options. And in that email that we'll be sending around with the recording of today's webinar, we'll also be including a link where all of these offerings are listed. Some of these are certificates, but one like the accident investigation course is a standalone course. And as I mentioned before, you can also take any of these certificates. You can just take specific courses that may be of interest to you. So that concludes the formal portion of our webinar. And I've just included again the email address for our student services team. So if you have any questions, then feel free to email us at openlearning@dal.ca. And I would encourage you also to seek out Atlanta Construction Podcast and follow them on Spotify. Search for them and follow them on Spotify. And you can certainly find Atlanta Construction Podcast on various social media channels. And I just want to acknowledge Daniel and Iman and their contributions to today's webinar. We were delighted to co-host today's webinar with Daniel and Atlanta Construction Podcast, and delighted to have Iman joining us to walk us through the certificates in much more detail than I could do. So really appreciate that. And now I'm just happy to open it to any questions. And thanks so much. So I'll open it up here for any questions. And recognizing that it might take a minute for people to type. We'll give a healthy pause here for any slow typers. So Darcy has a great question here, and it's just to hosts and panelists, so I'll just read it for everyone's benefit. How has automation impacted the industry in recent years?
Well, that's a good question. Certainly not my area of expertise, but we've had some conversations about that with different podcast guests. Talking about like software that can, be used for estimating, like gathering point counts with survey equipment on site that will kind of generate and integrate with CAD programs and estimating software. So you see a lot of technology trying to eliminate a lot of the task-oriented stuff for estimators and project managers, where you're sitting there kind of clicking a mouse for monotonous things like that. Other conversations, like you see new companies like Trimble, other software companies just coming up with new camera and drone technology that's integrated back to an office for site walkthroughs, 3D walkthroughs, and things like that. Even you see a lot of developers now using the same technology for renderings, video game software used for renderings to create, a perfect 3D high-end rendering walkthrough of a building with a drone view of that window height on that floor to sell a unit that's 2 years away from actually being built. Those are some examples of just different conversations that we've had on different kinds of software. And I'm sure that you can find a more in-depth answer for someone that's a little more techie than I am, but you basically hear all the time of just constant influx of new technology and automation. Pomerlo was on our podcast talking about an automated robotic kind kind of system that they adopted, and I'm not going to get it right here, but it was, was able to, I think, fasten sheeting and, kind of move materials around. There's different things that were linked to it from an office onto site. So you do hear some pretty crazy stuff happening in that regard, for sure.
Wonderful. Thanks, Daniel. That's great. And okay, and you just had a follow-up question. Are any of the new automations eliminating jobs, or are they all making things more accurate?
Yeah, I'm not sure if Iman has any comments, but I wouldn't say that they are. I wouldn't say that there's positions that are being eliminated, not in any of the areas that we touched on today. There's still a high demand for the current positions and more that are needed. I think when it comes to the automation, it's more efficient, less human error, things like that, but it's not near at the pace, not here in Atlantic Canada anyway, that positions are being eliminated due to that. So.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, those technologies make things more accurate, but who will operate them? It's the human's mind that operates them. So I don't think it affects a lot. Yeah, other than producing more accurate output.
Interesting. Yeah, and I mean, it certainly puts it back on us, on those institutions that are offering them professional development to make sure that we're teaching the skills that are needed to operate that technology. Exactly. And I'm sure that technology adds a different kind of complexity to roles as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, still, and Euthani's offered the comment, still need people, but with new skills. Yeah, absolutely. So just recognizing our time in the few minutes that we have left, and just recognizing that we all probably need to continue our work days. I will just wrap us up here, and just thank everyone for joining again. It's wonderful to have this chance to hear your perspectives, Iman and Daniel, in the industry, and how it aligns with what we're offering here at Dalhousie. I look forward to seeing different clips of this webinar showing up in different places and in our kind of our social media channels. And like I've said before, would encourage you to share this recording with your colleagues if it's of interest. And with that, I will conclude today's webinar and look forward to potentially maybe hosting another one in the future. We'll see.
Yeah.
Take care. Thanks so much, everyone. Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Yeah,
Pleasure.
really
My pleasure.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.